There are places on this earth that when you see them, you just have to say, "This can't be real." They could be monasteries stuck right onto cliffs, villages hanging over the edge of a volcano, or mud towers ready to melt away after a heavy rain. These are the harshest shelters, where people accept living with the Grim Reaper every single day. Why would they choose the most unstable places to build their homes? Could it be that hidden behind the danger are ancient secrets, divine beliefs, or master survival techniques that modern science still can't fully explain? Right now, buckle up and join me on a visit to the most dangerous houses in the world, places that are quietly challenging your imagination. Fanjing, Shan, China. Located in the Wuling Mountains, Fanjing Mountain is known as the pure land of the Buddha. Its height of 2,570 meters will make you feel like you've stepped into a CGI movie scene. The most impressive feature is the Red Cloud's Golden Peak, a solitary stone pillar nearly 100 meters tall that pierces through the clouds. On top, two temples, one for Sakyamuni and one for Matera, are separated by a crack called the Gold Sword Gorge and are connected only by a narrow stone bridge. To touch this paradise, you have to conquer 8,888 steep steps. On the 90-degree sections, you'll have to grip iron chains and crawl on all fours against the gusting winds. Built during the Ming Dynasty 500 years ago, the existence of the two temples remains a huge mystery of ancient engineering. How could people haul tons of material up a vertical cliff face without any machinery? Fanjing Mountain is magically beautiful with its 5-colored Buddha's light phenomenon, but it's also full of danger from lightning and slippery steps. An absurd balance between hell and heaven. This is the ultimate challenge for those who crave adventure. Abuna Yemata, Ethiopia. If there's any place in the world that will make you exclaim in disbelief, it's the Abuna Yemata Church in Ethiopia. Perched atop a 2,580-meter-high sandstone pillar, this is a real death-defying challenge. To get inside, you have to free climb a 200-meter vertical rock face. The only things protecting you are small handholds carved 1,500 years ago. The scariest part is the ledge in front of the cave entrance, which is only 50 centimeters wide. Here, a strong gust of desert wind is enough to hurl you into the abyss. Built in the 5th century as a refuge, the church is known as a place enemies couldn't reach, and ordinary people couldn't enter either. Yet for centuries, mothers have carried infants on their backs, and the elderly have calmly scaled the cliff to attend services here. The contrast between the stunning frescoes inside and the extreme danger outside has made Abuna Yemata one of the most psychologically paralyzing destinations on the planet. Would you dare to visit this unbelievable church once in your life? Paro Taktsang, Bhutan. Just 700 narrow stone steps, no handrails, and an abyss waiting at your feet. That's not a survival challenge, but the only path to Paro Taktsang, or Tiger's Nest, a monastery that defies all laws of gravity in Bhutan. At a breathtaking altitude of 3,120 meters, this complex clings tightly to a vertical cliff, over 900 meters above the valley. Built in 1692, it's an architectural feat tied to the legend of Guru Rinpoche, who flew here on a flaming tigress to subdue a demon. Your journey will begin on narrow stone steps that cross a 60-meter-high waterfall, completely without handrails. In the thin air, just one small slip could send you plunging into the deep chasm below. You'll be surprised to learn that ancient people used only human strength and crude bamboo scaffolding to transport materials up the sheer cliff face. Even after a devastating fire in 1998, the monastery resiliently rose from the ashes. Korowai treehouses, Indonesia. In the river basin of the Theo in Indonesia, the Korowai tribe has created the most dangerous houses on the planet. Instead of living on the ground, they build their homes high in the canopies of ancient trees at heights of 10 to 30 meters, with some even soaring up to 50 meters, equivalent to a 15-story building. The part that will send chills down your spine is the only way up. You have to climb a single, notched tree trunk that serves as a ladder with no handrail and no safety rope. A slip of the foot during the rainy season means an unforgiving free fall. The Korowai build their houses entirely by hand, from tree bark and palm leaves, without a single screw. This lifestyle helps them avoid wild animals, diseases, and, according to their beliefs, evil spirits. Conquering a Korowai treehouse is a true test of courage against humanity's breathtaking survival skills. If you long to experience what it's like to live in a house suspended in mid-air, this is a spot you can't miss. Oya, Santorini, Greece. If luxury had a dangerous face, it would be the village of Oya in Greece. Perched on the 60-degree rim of a collapsed volcano, the entire village is built on pumice stone, an extremely erodible material. The parasitic structure of the buildings is incredibly fragile. You'll be amazed to see that the roof of one house is the terrace of the one above it. Since the Middle Ages, people have dug deep into the cliffs to create cave houses to hide from pirates. But that stubbornness came at a great cost in 1956, when a terrible earthquake caused much of the village to crumble and fall into the Aegean Sea. Although it has been reborn, Oya remains a geological time bomb. The deadly rockfalls that occurred in 2011 and 2019 are the clearest evidence of the brutality of this place. Living in Oya is like a risky gamble. You get to experience the feeling of touching the Milky Way as it falls into the sea, but right under your feet, the volcano is still silently active and ready to trigger a domino effect at any moment. Kandovan, Iran. There are places in the world that make you wonder where the limits of existence lie. Kandovan is that very absurd answer. Nestled at the foot of Mount Sahan, at an altitude of 2,200 meters, the village makes you feel like you've wandered onto another planet with its unique, foundationless houses. It appears like a giant termite mound with cone-shaped rock pillars up to 40 meters high. The most shocking part is life inside the 2-meter-thick layer of compressed volcanic ash. Natural erosion wears away the cliff face every day, meaning the 1,000-ton roofs could collapse at any time if there's a seismic event. Created in the 13th century as a refuge from the Mongols, people used crude chisels to hollow out the volcanic rock, creating multi-story homes. However, danger is always lurking from rockfalls and the risk of fire, which could turn them into inescapable kilns. There is absolutely no turning back once you've committed. Come to challenge your courage and walk through this intentionally fragile place at least once in your life. Wangxian Valley, China. How do you build an entire ancient village on a vertical cliff with absolutely no foundation? The answer lies in Wangxian Valley, where human creativity has shattered all physical limits. At a height of 300 to 500 meters, the cluster of Huizhou-style wooden houses appears astonishingly on the vertical granite cliff. The entire structure clings on thanks only to a system of steel beams driven deep into the rock. To get around, you have to walk on winding paths along the cliffside. Right next to you is a bottomless abyss ready to swallow everything. The danger also comes from the extreme psychological challenge. The floors are sometimes just a thin layer of wood hundreds of meters above the valley floor, with the constant risk of rock slides. Rebuilt since 2011 on an old quarry, Wangxian Valley embodies the spirit of legends about immortals. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's a destination worth considering if you want to witness the boundless creativity of humankind. Sassi di Matera, Italy. Beneath your feet is the roof of a family's home, and next to you is a 400-meter-deep chasm. Welcome to Matera, a city not for those afraid of heights. This complex is perched precariously on the edge of the Gravina Canyon in southern Italy, like a fossilized labyrinth that defies all safety rules. More than 1,500 cave dwellings are carved deep into the limestone cliffs, creating a bizarre structure where the roof of one level is the pathway for the one above. Danger is always lurking due to the hollow, honeycomb structure inside the mountain. Just one crack from erosion could bring down the entire system of overlapping houses. With a 9,000-year history, this place was once a national shame, where people were forced to live with livestock in the dark. Today, despite becoming a famous James Bond film location, Matera still makes you tremble at the risk of a cave ceiling collapsing or slipping and falling into the gorge. A wonder that seems impossible, yet it continues to urge adventurous hearts to come and touch its turbulent history. What about you? Do you want to conquer this complex once in your life? Katskhi Pillar, Georgia. In the Imereti Valley of Georgia, the Katskhi limestone pillar rises proudly like a giant nail driven into the earth. At a height of 40 meters, you'll see a small monastery sitting alone on the top surface, which is only 150 square meters. The most terrifying part is the stairway to heaven, a rusty iron ladder mounted vertically to the cliff face. You have absolutely no safety harness, so just a muscle cramp or a strong gust of wind would make death hard to avoid. Likened to a god guarding the ancient forest, the monastery was built by hermits in the 6th century to find closeness to God. The place is tied to the story of Father Maxime, who lived in penance for 20 years on top of the pillar and slept in a stone coffin. With a rule forbidding women for safety reasons and a highly risky ascent, Katskhi Pillar is a symbol of steadfast faith. It's a place that invites brave souls to come and feel the thin line where the earth and sky seem to become one. Hotel Schafbergspitze, Austria. Imagine you're sipping a coffee on a thin sheet of glass. Beneath your feet, an abyss is waiting to swallow everything. That's the breathtaking experience at Schafbergspitze, a hotel perched on the Alps at an altitude of 1,783 meters. Built in 1862, this red and white roofed building is terrifying as it drops straight down for nearly 500 meters. To get here, you have to take a cogwheel railway with a gradient of up to 26%, a daring feat of 19th century engineering. However, hidden behind the romance are unforeseeable dangers. Sudden whirlwinds from the deep gorge or the flimsy wooden fence could cause you to slip at any moment. The contrast here is incredibly strong. Inside the hotel, you can enjoy a cozy cup of coffee, but just a pane of glass away is an abyss that could swallow everything. Even though it gives people the shivers, this place remains a devil's balcony so enchanting that everyone wants to set foot on it. Setenil de las Bodegas, Spain. Nestled along the Rio Trejo Gorge in Spain, Setenil de las Bodegas is known as a place where people accept living under the Grim Reaper's scythe. At an altitude of 640 meters, dozens of white houses here don't have conventional roofs. Instead, they are built nestled underneath giant limestone rock overhangs. The rocks jut out like a monster's jaw, creating immense psychological pressure. Just one tremor or an underground crack, and the disaster of a cave-in could strike at any moment. The name Setenil means 7 times nothing, referring to the 7 failed sieges by Catholic forces against the strong stone armor. Thanks to the cool temperatures, the caves are excellent for storing wine, but they also hold the constant risks of flaking rock and historic floods. Setenil is a destination for those who want to experience the feeling of having £1,000 hanging by a thread, a place where luxury restaurants hidden deep in the rock remain alluring despite the lurking dangers. The cliffside houses of Bonifacio, France. How can an ancient town with thousands of tons of stone stand firm on an overhang with no support? Bonifacio located on the southern tip of Corsica, France, is the answer to that absurdity. Built in 830 to fend off pirates, this place is tied to the legend of the King of Aragon's stairway. Its 187 stone steps carved straight into the 90-degree cliff face in just one night. At a height of 70 meters, you'll see rows of tall buildings built right on the edge of the vertical white limestone cliffs. The unbelievable part is that over millions of years, ocean waves have hollowed out the base of the rock, leaving the entire town suspended on a giant overhang, defying all laws of gravity. Despite its luxury, Bonifacio still holds the danger of 100 kilometers per hour wind gusts and the constant threat of erosion from sea salt causing landslides. The government has had to evacuate some of the most dangerous areas, turning this place into a living testament to humanity's extraordinary boldness. Meteora, Greece. If you were ever amazed by the floating islands in the blockbuster movie Avatar, then come to the Thessaly Valley to see a real-life version that's even more stunning. This is the Meteora Monastery Complex, a true suspended wonder on sandstone pillars ranging from 300 to 600 meters high. For centuries, access to this place was extremely treacherous. The ancients could only use flimsy rope ladders or sit in a hanging net pulled up by a manual pulley. The danger reached its peak with the monks' chilling philosophy. They believed, only replace the rope when the Lord lets it break. Built in the 14th century as a refuge, this is a testament to intense faith, as it took people 20 years just to transport materials to the top of the smooth rock. Today, even with stairs, the terrifying wind gusts are still a real challenge. Standing before these giant candles, you can't help but be overwhelmed as you realize the thin line between mortal life and the eternal realm. Magician Grottos, China. There are smiles that have existed for 1,600 years, withstanding terrible earthquakes, waiting for travelers who dare to overcome their fear. That is the Eastern Smile at Shan, a Buddhist wonder perched precariously on a 1,742-meter-high vertical cliff in Gansu province. The staggering feature is the system of 194 caves with over 7,200 Buddhist statues carved out and suspended at heights of up to 80 meters. The entire structure has stood proudly for 1,600 years thanks to a network of wooden walkways clinging to the vertical rock face. The Grim Reaper is always lurking on the narrow, 1-meter-wide steps. This is also a place where a thin railing is the only thing stopping you from falling into the abyss. Built during the later Qin period, Shan once endured a massive earthquake in 734 that caused a whole section of the mountain to collapse. Although it's now reinforced with steel, the walkway still brings a sense of dread to those with a fear of heights. Varja, Georgia. Perched on the cliffs of Erusheti Mountain in Georgia at an altitude of 1,300 meters, Vardzia is a great honeycomb that challenges all rules of survival. This underground city was hand-carved into volcanic rock in the 12th century, rising up to 19 stories with over 6,000 rooms suspended between the clouds. You'll have to hold your breath as you squeeze through secret tunnels just 60 centimeters wide. The paths along the cliff's edge here have also worn down after nearly 1,000 years of history. The danger also comes from the fragile foundation. The earthquake of 1283 once tore the cliff face apart, turning this hidden city into a chilling, exposed cross-section. Tied to the legend of Queen Tamar, this place carries the soul of an indomitable fortress. Despite the danger, Vardzia remains a coveted destination for those who want to witness an ancient marvel of irrigation, as well as touch the thin line between life and the abyss. The Bridge Village in Chongqing, China. In the heart of Chongqing, China, the row of houses on a bridge in Linshui district is a startling town in the sky, defying all logic of safety. At a height of 50 meters, this 400-meter-long street isn't built on the ground at all, but clings to the spine of a slender concrete bridge. Thousands of tons of concrete weigh down a structure that was only meant for traffic. with just a small error or a problem with a bridge pillar, the entire street could come crashing down at any moment. Built in the late 90s due to a shortage of land, residents here say they can still feel the floor bounce with the rhythm of every passing vehicle. The narrow 3-meter wide streets with balconies hanging right over the edge of the bridge create a suffocating, apocalyptic feeling. However, the bridge village in Chongqing is still a destination worth considering for you to witness a strange way of life, where families are gambling their sleep over the sound of wind howling under the bridge. Phugtal Monastery, India. A 2-day trek on a trail just 50 centimeters wide, where a single misstep means the raging river below will end your journey. That's the price to pay to reach Phugtal, a monastery suspended on the cliff face of Lungnak, India. At an altitude of 3,800 meters, you won't believe your eyes when you see this complex clinging to the side of a cave. The rooms, made of mud and wood, are supported only by beams driven into the rock. Built in the 15th century on the site of a 2,500-year-old ancient cave, this is a place of absolute seclusion for monks to clear their minds of worldly thoughts. It's also connected to a sacred spring that never runs dry, but it also holds the danger of flash floods and landslides, like the flood in 2015 that completely isolated the monastery. At Phugtal, both food and life are gambled on paths that are just 1 foot wide. Nevertheless, it remains a symbol of undying faith on the fragile edge of life. Shibam, Yemen. Imagine you're in a city with skyscrapers weighing hundreds of tons, but just one long, heavy rain could melt them all into a puddle of mud. That is the dramatic reality of Shibam, the Manhattan of the desert in Yemen. At an altitude of 600 meters, you will witness a scene of over 500 buildings, some up to 30 meters high, packed closely together, built entirely from mud bricks and straw without any steel core. These dried mud blocks have defied gravity since the 16th century. But don't forget the ever-present danger. Just one rainstorm could dissolve the mud, causing the entire 100-ton towers to collapse in a domino effect. To maintain the complex, people have to risk climbing rope ladders to re-plaster the mud after every rainy season. Historic floods in 2008 and 2020 turned many thousand-year-old houses into piles of rubble, a costly reminder of the city's fragility. Despite this, the magnificent beauty and magical allure of Shibam still compel adventurous hearts to explore it at least once in their lifetime. San Juan de Gaztelugatxe, Spain. One misstep is the abyss, and a gust of wind can blow a grown adult directly into the sea. Welcome to Gaztelugatxe, a place that challenges all safety limits in Spain. At a height of 80 meters in the Bay of Biscay, the ancient 10th century monastery sits alone on top of the island. It is connected to the mainland by only a single, narrow, winding stone bridge. The journey up the 241 steep steps will make your heart pound. On one side is a cliff, on the other is an abyss with waves up to 10 meters high, always waiting to swallow everything. Originally a hermitage and a fortress against pirates, the island is tied to the legend of St. John's footprint and the custom of ringing a bell for good luck. Despite its breathtakingly seductive beauty, Gaztelugatxe still bears many historical scars and the constant danger of landslides. This is a destination for those who crave conquest, a place where you entrust your fate to the sound of a bell echoing across the ocean. Derinkuyu, Turkey. Don't enter Derinkuyu if you're afraid of the dark or tight spaces. This place isn't just a heritage site, it's a deadly labyrinth designed to disorient enemies. Located in Cappadocia, Turkey, Derinkuyu is an inverted skyscraper that plunges 85 meters into the earth. You won't believe the existence of a giant maze that could hold 20,000 people beneath the arid fields. The danger lies in the narrow corridors, less than 1.5 meters high, where you're forced to walk hunched over in the dark. It could easily become a tomb with no exit if you get lost or experience localized oxygen deprivation in the deeper levels. Dug by hand into volcanic rock since the 8th century BC as a refuge, Derinkuyu is completely invisible, like a geological iceberg. The structure is linked to a strange story from 1963, when a man accidentally broke through a wall in his house and opened a historical Pandora's box. Not just a fortress with half-ton stone doors, Derinkuyu is also a death trap for strangers. By penetrating this eternal darkness, you'll be amazed at human resilience, giving up sunlight in exchange for survival. Choqquequirao, Peru. Hidden in the Salcante mountain range at an altitude of 3,050 meters, Choqquequirao is a breathtaking wonder that challenges all limits. You won't believe your eyes when you see the stone houses and terraced fields clinging to a slope as steep as 70 degrees. The most frightening part is the journey to get there. You have to hike for 2 days through the Apurimac Canyon on trails that are only 40 centimeters wide. One misstep will send you falling 1,500 meters into one of the deepest canyons in the world. Choqquequirao carries the soul of the last Inca resistance fortress. The city is also linked to the legend of the 24 stone llamas, the Llamas del Sol, that guard its borders. However, this journey is fraught with dangers from landslides to altitude sickness that can cause hallucinations. The isolation here is absolute, as any rescue is 2 days away. Despite all the dangers, these precarious stone houses are a symbol of humanity's fierce will for freedom against the harsh nature of the majestic Andes. Pompeii, Italy. Located at the foot of Mount Vesuvius in Italy, Pompeii is known as the strangest frozen city in the world. After the horrific disaster of 79 AD, the luxurious houses here became eternal stone tombs. What's incredible is that this prosperous city was only 8 kilometers from the volcano's crater. This was a fatal distance that allowed a 300 degrees Celsius heat wave to arrive in just a few minutes. And yet, the very ash that killed everyone preserved everything perfectly. From the loaf of bread on the table to the vibrant frescoes, Pompeii appears as a haunting, open-air museum. Pompeii is associated with the image of the eternal embrace of petrified lovers. It tells the story of tragic ignorance, as the ancients unknowingly built their wonder right on top of a powder keg. Although the Mediterranean sun is inviting, the threat of another eruption is always present. You will find yourself trembling at the traces of 15,000 victims, while also yearning to touch a moment of the apocalypse that has been frozen for 2,000 years. Uros, Peru. How do you build an entire civilization on piles of dry reeds in the middle of the world's highest navigable lake? The Uros floating islands are Peru's proud answer. Situated on Lake Titicaca at a record altitude of 3,810 meters, Uros is a daring marvel of survival. The existence of over 120 man-made islands with no permanent foundations will seem unbelievable to you. The extreme danger lies in the fact that this ground decomposes daily. If you don't add new reeds every week, you could fall right through the floor and into the 10 degrees Celsius water, causing instant thermal shock. The Uros people built this place thousands of years ago to escape the Incas, turning the fragility of reeds into a fortress of freedom. Just by cutting the anchor ropes, the entire village can move with the waves. You'll be amazed to see residents cooking on stone slabs placed right in the middle of dry reeds, where a fire could burn everything to the ground in an instant. A storm that breaks an anchor rope at night could even cause them to wake up in the neighboring country of Bolivia the next day. Iquitos, Peru. Would you dare to enter a city where the only way in is by water and the streets are actually raging rivers flowing under your bed? Iquitos in Peru is just such a destination. This is the most isolated city in the world because there are absolutely no roads leading to it. In the Belen neighborhood, thousands of houses are built on wooden rafts or stilts up to 7 meters high. You'll be awestruck during the rainy season when the water level rises 12 meters, turning bedrooms into precarious boat docks. The current can tear the floating houses apart at any moment, while diseases are always lurking under the rotting foundations. The city was born from the 19th century rubber boom and is associated with Gustave Eiffel's absurd Iron House, which was hauled up the Amazon River. Residents here regularly face burning sun, torrential rain, and the bobbing of their rafts right next to the jaws of crocodiles. However, Iquitos remains an alluring magnet, inviting those who want to explore a harsh but free reality. This is a place where people accept living with death in order to survive in the heart of the great jungle. Al-Hajara, Yemen. Located on top of Haraz mountain at an altitude of 2,100 meters, the ancient village of Al-Hajara is a wonder in Yemen that challenges all limits of gravity. Built in the 12th century as a fortress, the stone buildings here can be up to 8 stories high, despite standing right on the edge of a cliff. If you drop a stone from a window, it will free fall hundreds of meters below. Death is present on the single narrow trail into the village, a path just wide enough for a donkey. In the summer, lightning often strikes the stone towers directly. After heavy rains, the risk of walls cracking and falling into the abyss is ever present. The image of villagers calmly sipping tea by a window overlooking the deep void is truly mesmerizing. It's a gamble with death that anyone would want to witness and test themselves against. From monasteries perched among the clouds to mud cities that can dissolve in the rain, each place you've just visited is an epic tale of willpower and miraculous survival. Among the names mentioned, which one made your heart stop the most? Would you be brave enough to spend the night in such a precarious house? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next heart-pounding journeys. See you next time.